Hello, and welcome to this week's 30-minute mastermind. Today we're going to be looking at a different topic, and that's going to be getting out of your own way by stepping out of your comfort zone. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad you're going to be spending this little bit of time with us. So before we actually get started, there's a couple of things I'd like to remind you of. First of all is that we will be staying within the promised 30 minutes for this webinar. Your time is incredibly valuable, and I am so grateful that you're here today, and I want to make sure that you know that we will be working within that boundary. The second thing is hopefully you've downloaded your worksheet, which is actually a copy of these slides today, and that you'll be able to use them as we go through the webinar. Last but not least, I'd like to remind you that my name is Barbara Jemmett, definitely. I am the founder of Your Entrepreneurial Spirit, and we generally bring it down to yes. My background is for more than 20 years to be a business strategist to small, medium, and large businesses. And my passion these days is to operate as a business strategist to women entrepreneurs. I am here to help you connect with your customers and grow your bottom line both online and offline. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll get started. I like to start these 30-minute masterclasses with a quote that seems relevant to the topic of the day, and it also helps me to move into the introduction. So I'd like to share this one with you because I think it really does speak to the topic. It is, the only thing that is stopping you from moving from where you are to where you want to go is your comfort zone. I think that's such a powerful statement, and it actually sets the stage for what we're doing. So let me just introduce the topic to you. In business these days, we have growth that leads to new ideas and new opportunities, but to make progress, we've got to leave the status quo alone and move out and push our own limits. A lot of times it's easier said than done, and I get that, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. Your comfort zone is where you feel safe and secure, so leaving it can be incredibly terrifying. However, outside of that comfort zone is where the growth happens. You've heard that before. So I'm just reminding you of what you've heard and what you know. So let's take the example of public speaking. We all know what that's like. Most of us have to do some type of public speaking at some point in our personal professional lives. But very few people are naturals at it. And it's something we have to learn with baby steps to begin with, but definitely we have to learn. So when you're new to public speaking, you get up in front of an audience and your body doesn't seem to belong to you. Your knees might be knocking, you might feel short of breath, you might even sweat a little bit. But what you need to recognize is that it is just nerves. You can do this. So sometimes you can't even look up from your notes and your voice quivers and you start to forget what you were actually there to talk about. But then, after you've done it a few times, you get to relax. You learn some techniques to help make it easier. You practice making eye contact with your audience, and you also practice projecting your voice. Well, when you do all of this, it's not quite as scary as it was before. And it also opens up opportunities where you can get in front of people and speak about the things that you're passionate about and the things that you can help people with. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you do it. It doesn't mean that you're ever totally going to get over this feeling. But you do learn how to manage it. And you improve so much that you can actually do this job or do this speech without freezing. That's outside of your comfort zone. So that's what I want you to take away from today. I use public speaking as a metaphor because it's such a common fear familiar to most people. And it's one of the challenges that if you can understand this, it'll teach you how challenges actually work. You can become a great public speaker if you get out of your comfort zone. And all that takes is practice. So what happens then is we have to take a look at our mindset, because this is the only thing that's really holding us back. How do you step out of your comfort zone and face those challenges? You do it by shifting your mindset just a little bit to turn that thing that absolutely makes your mouth dry into a challenge and then learning the experience and walking through to your success. You do it step by step by adding to it gradually, and hopefully you do it by building it into your daily routine. You can do it by learning strategies to help overcome fear and embrace change, and that's a big one. It's about embracing the change. The end result is a whole new potential for growth. So we are going to go through these 4 parts of stepping out of your comfort zone. And it starts with smashing the status quo, checking your mindset for change, helping your team, and I'm going to explain that term team, even though you're a solopreneur or a one-person office, you still have a team, and stepping out of your comfort zone into a habit that you can embrace and use all the time. So what's the problem with the status quo? Well, the status quo is a natural place to be, and it generally is a good thing. It helps to keep us safe, it identifies and protects us from threats, and it helps us succeed by doing things that we already know works. The fear of change is also a natural instinct, but it can be a hindrance, not a help, when you're running a business and trying to grow, or attempting to make positive changes in your personal life. Sometimes, in order to move forward, we have to deal with the status quo. Sticking in your comfort zone or with the status quo, is whichever term you prefer, leaves us holding hands with a number of different things. And so these are some of the common words that we can think about when we talk about stagnation or being stagnant in our business. There could be stagnant ideas. Growth is fueled by new ideas and by trying different things. It's natural to stick with what's always worked, but it can easily lead you into a rut, and you know that. Change is one of the only constants that we have, and if you don't embrace it, you are going to stay where you are. You're going to miss out on new opportunities and new clients that can give you even better results than you already have. To grow, you are going to need a steady stream of new ideas. You could also slip behind the competition. Your competitors are most certainly stepping out of their comfort zones and looking for new ideas. So again, you're going to be left behind if you don't. You can't afford to get smug and figure you've got it all figured out. Those who embrace change get a competitive advantage over those who don't. Staying in a rut virtually ensures that you're going to fall behind your competition. Staying with the status quo also means that you don't really have a drive to achieve goals. Think of any goal that you've managed to achieve in the past. Was it something you could coast through and achieve just by sitting there and saying, oh, that would be a nice idea? Any goal worth achieving requires us to step out of our comfort zone, breathe deeply, and go for it. Attaining goals also requires you to be positive. There's no way you can achieve that goal if you don't believe you can do it. When you're in a fear mindset, you're expecting the worst all the time, and that cannot motivate you to achieve your goals. You grow through mistakes. The main thing that stops us from taking chances is a fear of failure. But failure is how we learn. We learn and we grow this way. We learn from our own mistakes. We learn hopefully from other people's, but that's not always true. If you are paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, either in your business or your personal life, you don't learn, you don't gain the experience that you need in order to grow. And remember, if there's no risk, there's no reward. If you stick with the status quo, you'll see that there's less and less engagement amongst your clients, your readers, or if you have a team, amongst your team members. Countless studies show that by staying in your comfort zone, it leads to apathy all around. Not only your own, but anybody that comes in contact with you. The status quo is also limiting your growth. Remaining within the status quo, there's only so much you can do, professionally or personally. And this status quo will define your own limitations. The status quo is going to define your limitations, so now is the time to break them. Step by step, challenge by challenge, you can actually expand and even erase those limits. Another thing that happens is the status quo provides so little buzz to generate new business. Nobody gets to hear about you because you're still doing what you always did. New business ideas and opportunities don't come from sitting in your rut. when you learn to take chances and create a culture of facing your challenges, you know what? It's going to pay for itself. So this is what's wrong with the status quo. Stagnation means into the rut. Here's a visual of what that actually looks like. Your ideas are affected, your growth is affected. There's no drive, you're exhausted most of the time, there's no joy to what you're doing, and falling behind is a given. So I'd like you to keep this particular visual in mind when you think about what stagnation looks like for you. If we look at these words again, we saw them earlier, I wonder what stagnation would mean in each of these areas. So I just want you to take a second and ponder on that. What does it look like? If you're behind your competition, what could that look like? What would it mean if you're stagnating in your growth? What happens to your goals if they're not being addressed and moved through? How are you feeling limited? I just want you to take a look at the words and say, okay, I recognize what they are. No. Over to you now. This slide is all about thinking about where you are stagnating right now at this minute. I'd like you to take at least one of these words that you recognize as being a stumbling block for you at this time. You'll see that the items that are in the same color are often related, so you can look at it that way as well. But I want you to write down at least one area where you feel that you are stagnating or getting left behind. Now, either on your workbook or on a sheet of paper, I'd like you to write down 3 ways in which you've stuck with the status quo in your business and personal life in the last year. 3 ways. I want you to think about it for just a second. I'd then like you to write down what you could have done in these situations to break through and embrace the change instead, because the change came anyway, you know that. So I'm just going to give you a minute or two to reflect on that and to write your answers. These are your personal answers, you do not have to share them. So let's take 1 minute to do that. So when we're looking at the change mindset, we have to recognize that it accepts and even welcomes fear and challenges. In order to shift your mindset to one of change, you need to identify the fears that are holding you back in any situation, and you need to confront them. There are reasons why we fear change, and that's what we're going to look at next. As I mentioned earlier, our natural instincts is to use fear to protect us and to protect us from danger, but there's a lot of other reasons we fear change. Change can mean leaving something comfortable or something that you're invested in. You've worked hard to build your systems to up to this point, and change feels like you're throwing them out or abandoning them. Changing means leaving certainty. You do what you do because it has worked in the past and you can rely on it, or so you think. When we change, we feel like we're losing something. Instead of seeing change as an opportunity to gain something valuable, we often see it as a risk of losing something. These fears are true only for negative changes, but we also have positive changes. Even if you're leaving a so-so job for one that you think will be great, you're still going to be unsure. You know you're going to feel unsure about that. You're making a move to a new city where you've always wanted to live. But these doubts are nagging it in your mind. What if you overthought it? And what if it's not what you thought? We're going to look at some of the things that can be holding you back. But remember, there are negative changes and positive changes. And most of the time you get to decide which one is which. Just to recap the fears that change can bring forward, change can mean something like leaving something that you're invested in. You spent a lot of time getting to this spot, and now you've decided all of a sudden that you don't see the value in it. What happens? Change can mean leaving something that you're certain about. Change can mean losing something. And fear of change is not only for negative changes. Look at the words in red. There is a connotation to each one of those, but it doesn't have to be a bad one. I'd just like you to recognize that. Now it's your turn. I'd like you to pick a time frame, a 1 year, a 2 year, or a 5 year time span in the past, and I'd like you to reflect on these two questions. What were your biggest goals and dreams in that 1 year time frame? What were your biggest worries and stresses in that same 1 year time frame? Take a minute, write it down on a sheet of paper, indicate what time frame you're looking at, and answer the two questions. It's your turn to look at embracing the change. So what I'd like to do now then is, over the same time frame that you wrote down on the last slide, I'd like you to write down 3 positive changes or things that you've accomplished in that time frame. I'd like you to consider the goals you met, obstacles you overcame, changes in quality of life, anything that you feel is significant in that same time frame that we looked at on the last slide. Take a minute and focus on this. Write it all down for your future reference. Remember, I used the term team earlier, and I said it doesn't matter whether you're a one-person shop or you have a small team. Everybody has a team, and they're going to have to go through the process of embracing change as well. So that's what this next piece is about. As scared as you are about stepping out of your comfort zone or your fear of failure, because that's in there as well, your team is just as afraid as you are. Your team does not yet see your vision. So if they don't understand it, they are going to be reticent. They are going to be a little bit fearful. But let's talk about who your team is. If you do have a business that has a team, absolutely, they are they are forward facing. My goodness, I tripped over that. And you can see them. But if you're a one-person shop or a very small team, or you rely on yourself, you often feel that you don't have a team, but you do. Your family, your relatives, your friends, your close friends, these could all be considered to be team members in this context. So what I'm talking about is they're going to see changes, and they're going to need to understand them. So if it's a family member, maybe your children, they maybe need to do some things a little differently. We might need to assign additional responsibilities. We need to make sure that the spouse knows that whatever it is, you can fill in the blank here, applies during this time. The parents need to know that you're not just goofing off. You know what I'm talking about. So these are your extended team. Just because they're not there in an office with you doesn't mean that they are not team members. And once you get them to see your vision and help them to know that they are part of your success, you can start to move forward. You can overcome your fear and show them how to overcome theirs as well. In this way, you can inspire them, and you know what? They become advocates for you once they feel that they are part of this team. So you can do a lot of this by doing things like, you have a big goal, you know that. Break up that big goal into smaller, more chewable, if you will, pieces, and allow them to see the process. Anticipate what their fears are and speak to them instead of waiting to have them grow their fear in their own minds, and it is absolutely not related to what's going on. Put the resources in place that you need. You don't have to go out and become a Staples or whatever. But what you can do is make sure that the calendars are up to date. All of those things, those resources, are going to help things move a little more smoothly. Don't forget to celebrate and reward success. So not only yours, but theirs. If they've helped you do fill in the blank, whatever that thing is, celebrate that. And then make time to give them focus time, your time. So anticipate their fears, celebrate the rewards and the successes, and give them some of your time. It's good for you, it's good for them, and it's good for your business. And now it's time to start to make stepping out of your comfort zone your new habit, one that you're going to address every day, so we can get rid of some of that trepidation and give you the confidence to face that challenge when it comes up. In order to see big changes in your business or personal life, you are going to need to incorporate your change mindset into your daily routine. You're going to be stepping out of your comfort zone. You're going to be making it a habit. And you're going to build this new muscle on this habit over time. The more you do it, the easier it's going to become, just like anything else. By the same token, if you don't do it very often, you're going to find it difficult to confront your fears, and they are going to have a bigger hold over you. But with change as a daily habit, you'll be able to easily get on it, eyeball that challenge, and just keep going. And how are we going to do that? We're going to make sure that you incorporate it into your daily routine. And we're going to look at it from these 6 perspectives. So the first one is what's outside. Always keep in mind that what's outside your comfort zone is something that you are going to have to reach for. Remind yourself that there's benefits and rewards out there, and your fears and well, let's talk about your fears, are going to diminish as you embrace these challenges. Remember that all of the good things that you've learned through your efforts in the past, and it's been lifelong learning. You may want to write some of these things down and refer to it from time to time, particularly if you feel like you need some motivation. What is outside of your comfort zone? The next one, do something that scares you every day. This Eleanor Roosevelt quote is something that can inspire. Now that you're leaving your comfort zone, it's going to become easier to maintain that change mindset and do something every day that kind of makes your heart flutter just a little bit. It can be something that just makes you take a deep breath. It could be something as simple as, instead of sitting quietly, you might reach out and just start a conversation with someone that's waiting in the waiting room with you, something along those lines. Or it might be something like making a cold sales call. Don't worry about whether or not it's successful or it's a failure. It's about the doing. So that is, do something that scares you every day. The next one is don't run away. Don't run away from the fear or discomfort when you actually feel it. Admit it's there. Maybe you're trying to do something like take more chances in your business and your heart is beating. And you may encounter a challenge that, first of all, you maybe didn't anticipate, but just knocks you back on your heels a little bit. That doesn't mean that you can't do something about it. Embrace the challenge anyway and see it through to the other side and then make the decision, well, I'm glad I did that, or, well, I learned something this time. Be aware, though, that your feelings that you have here are genuine, and it may be a signal for you to say, maybe I should look into this a little more. The next one is make sure you spend time with positive people. Surround yourself with those people who have the type of mindset that you're trying to get to. And their attitude will absolutely rub off on you. You know that you have some amazing people in your network. And when you come away from them, you feel refreshed and invigorated. And that's what we're going for here. You also inspire other people. So it's not a one-way street. You know that, and you can embrace that as well. The next item is don't be shy to try new things. Whenever possible, try something new. When was the last time you tried a new restaurant or a different type of food? When did you go to a new workout class? Or when did the last time you wore some clothes that were a little bit different than your usual style? Again, these changes don't necessarily have to be related to your business, but it is about the change. So don't worry about, it's not the end of the world if that skirt doesn't look as great on you as you envisioned it to be because it's outside of your comfort zone. But wear it anyway, just this one time. The last one is to laugh more. We take ourselves incredibly seriously, and sometimes you just have to roll with it. And I think if we did that a little bit more, we'd all be a little bit better off. It'll make it easier for you to take chances because you realize that it is not the be-all and end-all decision. And you'll be able to withstand failures and mistakes much more easily. So having a sense of humor and a sense of adventure can be incredibly helpful. Think about it. Here's a reminder of the steps we just discussed about getting out of your comfort zone and making it a habit that you can implement in your day-to-day. So if you just start at the top and keep these in mind as you go through your daily, weekly, monthly tasks, I think you'll find that it'll become a little bit easier. So just take a moment and take a look at this as a reminder of what we just talked about a few minutes ago. It's your turn again, and I just want to give you these takeaways. Embrace the fact that you're going to need to incorporate the change mindset into your daily routine and just go do it. It's not hard. It can be very pleasant. So look on the bright side. Practice embracing change every day to make facing your future challenges easier. So work that change muscle so that when you have to make the more adventurous changes or address the more adventurous challenges, you won't have as big a problem doing that. I want you to pick one thing that you find uncomfortable, but you know that you'll benefit from. And I want you to pick one of the strategies that we talked about in the daily activities and try it out using on just that one thing, I should say. How do you think that's going to feel? And then on the other side, how did it feel? And what do you think you'll do differently as a result of going through this particular strategy exercise? Remember, it's all about forming a new habit. So we are nearing our 30-minute time frame, and the whole thing we've been talking about is getting out of your comfort zone. So I want you to use some of the strategies that we discussed during this webinar and get out of your comfort zone now. You can do it. Let's get moving. Here's my closing quote for our webinar today. It is, do one thing that scares you every day. And this is one of my favorite Eleanor Roosevelt quotes because it's so powerful. I hope you'll take it and run with it. Well, our time is over. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you got as much out of it as I enjoyed sharing this information with you. Please look out for our next upcoming masterclass, which will be in a couple of weeks. And again, my name is Barbara Gemmet. It has been my honor to spend this time with you today. You can find me on Facebook, and I'd really enjoy it if you check out my blog and learn more about how you can support your business. Again, I hope to see you in the next masterclass in about 2 weeks. Bye now.